There's this little area here so you can see what I'm talking about. I want to start with hammers. This is a hammer from Tech T. Nice hammer, full of holes. Yes, it's got holes in it. That's fantastic. One thing they may not have known is that a hammer's weight is a hammer's dwell. By a hammer's dwell, how can I explain a hammer's dwell? Okay, so we've got our power tube, okay, and we've got the valve sitting inside the power tube. We all know how these things work. Let me just push that in. Okay, so we've got a, oh, it doesn't matter if it's not lined up, I'm only doing this as a demo. We've got the main valve inside the power tube here. Now, of course, our hammer slides up and down, doesn't it? We know how these work. It goes inside the tube, hits the little pin, and then gets blown back out. We can actually adjust how long this hammer hangs around for. We're only looking at a fraction of a second, 1/100th of a second. If you're running your blowback at high pressure, 850 psi, fraction of a second is something like 2/10 of a litre of air. I'm not going to do the mega maths on it, but it's actually quite a lot, and it does make a considerable amount of difference in business. And oh Dave, oh Gommie, how can we adjust our hammer, I hear you say? Well, it's quite easy. You have your spring guide that sits inside your hammer. Now, looking at this, I noticed that there's rather a large gap inside here with really nothing going on. So what I've done is I've made some weights, and these weights sit inside the hammer, and then the spring guide sits inside the weights, and they work like this. You slide your weight onto the guide, and then you slide that whole assembly into the hammer. So now your hammer is fractionally more heavier than it was before. If it's not enough and you want a bigger dwell time, we have a heavier weight. Okay, nice and simple, super simple thinking that I shouldn't be telling manufacturers about. They should know this. This is Physics Class 101 for 11-year-olds. It's volume versus mass. Anybody who tunes or is an airsmith or makes paintball markers or air rifles should all know what volume versus mass is. It's, you know, it's the most simple equation that tells us what any given amount of air is going to produce at any set pressure. Boyle's law, oh my god. What I want to talk to you next about is the actual the valve body itself. So I'm going to lose these hammers. We're going to be coming back to this in a minute because there's something else I want to show you. This is a standard, what marker is this I'm doing? It's a BT4 Combat, very popular. This is the standard valve body. It's got 3 valve channels, quite generous. My gas flowed ones have 4 valve channels, or air channels, or cleats, troughs, trenches, whatever you want to call them. I also make the other channels a millimetre wider, and then I just machine off the plug end where the circlip is, just give my air a chance to expand before it comes into contact with the radii that sits in the bottom of there. Radii being the radius or the corner. We're just going to call it a corner, the corner, so the air doesn't bump into it and want to come backwards. People that build exhaust systems for cars will know what I'm talking about. Something else I want to tell you about what's going on here is inside here there's a little spring that actually keeps the valve pin pushed up against the valve plate. While we're talking about valve plates, you can actually open the valve plates up. This is a, I don't know if you can see it, this is a standard valve plate, and this is a valve plate that I've opened up. That's 0.5 bigger. Basically it flows more air for the same duration of the pin being open. Inside here, we'll come back to that again, there's a spring inside there. Okay, let's see if we can put this at an angle where the spring will sit. That's better. That. There's a spring inside. This is a standard spring. This keeps the pin pushed up against the valve plate. 25 years ago, when we were all playing with pump guns, there used to be a little spring at the back, and then we'd have a big spring at the front. Of course, with your gun, with these blowbacks, you've still got a little spring and a big spring. The big spring is the actual drive spring. And believe it or not, you can play the springs against each other. You can take this big spring out and replace it with a little spring. That means that there's less force to open this pin valve now. Don't go too mad. If you do go absolutely bonkers and say put a spring in there from a pen or something, make sure that when you come to turn your gas on that you cock the gun, because if this pin is open, all your air's just going to come running out. The whole point of this is that it takes less force to whack this valve pin. Less force is good. Less force means a smaller spring at the back. Smaller spring at the back means less effort to cock the gun. Less effort to cock the gun means more shots from your bottle. And that's basically what we're doing here. Is I'm trying to get you more shots from your bottle. Because standard, you know what we're talking about, don't you? 300-400 shots for a 1.1 at 3K. It's just, it's not good, is it? You want to be shooting, not walking. And let's face it, some of the big games we've got going on today, you can walk half a mile to the airfield station. Oh, bugger that. I'm coming up to my 50s. I don't want to be walking half a mile. Not unless there's a little van comes around and picks us up. Next thing I want to talk about, this affects Tippmann A5s, this BT4 Combat. In fact, anything that uses this little adapter. It may affect the Fennies too. I think it does. If your marker's got one of these adapters, you're throwing compressed air down the drain. I'm going to tell you why. Before I go into the do's and don'ts of this thing, this is one of my backs. This is a standard back, okay? I've chosen the freak back for this demonstration because it makes what I'm going to show you easier to digest and understand. And at the end of it, a certain realisation will hit you that you're wasting about 30 feet per second with every single shot. Now, we all know what a freak back is. If we don't, I'm not going to start explaining it now. Now, this is a standard BT4 hammer, A5 hammer, obviously not a Tippmann one, but you also get it in your X7. Now, on every single